By the end of this video, you're going to understand something that could completely change your relationship with your insecurities. They're not actually about the things you think they're about, and the way you've been trying to fix them is making them stronger. And here's the tension. Right now, you're probably trying to eliminate your insecurities. Working on yourself? Improving? Fixing the things you don't like? But what if I told you that the fixing itself is the trap? That your insecurities aren't problems to solve, but symptoms of something much deeper? Have you ever noticed that even when you fix the thing you're insecure about, you lose the weight, you get the promotion, you achieve the goal, the insecurity doesn't actually go away? It just finds something else to latch onto, something new to convince you that you're not enough. There's something strange about insecurities. They're not rational, they don't respond to evidence, and they have almost nothing to do with the actual things you think you're insecure about. And here's the paradox. The people who appear most confident often have the deepest insecurities. They've just gotten better at performing confidence, while the insecurity quietly runs the show underneath. So what's really happening psychologically when you feel insecure? And why does fixing the surface issue never actually make the feeling go away?
Now, before we get into the framework for understanding insecurities, there's a critical piece you have to understand first. And this alone will completely shift how you see your own insecurities. Insecurities are not about reality. They're about the gap between who you think you should be and who you believe you actually are. This is the game within the game. It's the most important building block for understanding why insecurities work the way they do. Here's the truth. Your insecurities aren't measuring you against reality. They're measuring you against an imaginary standard, one that's usually impossible, often contradictory, and always moving. And this is where it gets fascinating. You can objectively improve yourself in every measurable way and still feel just as insecure because the standard adjusts to stay just out of reach. Think about it. You achieve something you thought would make you feel confident, and for maybe a day or a week, you feel good. But then the bar moves. The thing that felt like an achievement becomes the new baseline. And now you're measuring yourself against the next impossible standard. This expectation versus reality framework, where your brain is constantly comparing your actual self to your ideal self, is the engine that drives every insecurity you have. And understanding this changes everything about how you approach them.
All right, let's start with the first step in understanding the psychology of insecurities, where they actually come from. Because here's what most people get wrong. Insecurities aren't about the things themselves. You think you're insecure about your appearance, your intelligence, your accomplishments, but those are just the costumes the insecurity wears. The actual insecurity lives much deeper. Here's what's really happening. Insecurities are formed when you learn, usually early in life, that your worth is conditional, that you're only valuable, only lovable, only acceptable when you meet certain standards. Maybe you learned that love came with conditions. Maybe you were praised for achievement, but not for just existing. Maybe you were compared to siblings, criticized for mistakes, or made to feel like you had to earn your place. Dr. John Bowlby's attachment theory shows us that children form their sense of self-worth through early relationships. If love and acceptance felt conditional, if you had to be smart enough, attractive enough, accomplished enough to be valued, your brain internalized a simple but devastating equation. Your worth, performance. And this is where it gets complex. You don't just internalize this equation and move on. You spend the rest of your life trying to solve it, constantly scanning for proof that you measure up, constantly terrified of the evidence that you don't. The insecurity isn't about your appearance or your achievements. It's about the fundamental belief that you're not inherently valuable, that your worth is something you have to earn and maintain, improve, constantly forever. But the truth is, this is the trap. Because if your worth is based on external measures, there's no finish line. There's no amount of achievement or improvement that will ever make you feel secure. Because the insecurity isn't about what you have or don't have. It's about the belief that what you are isn't enough. Now let's talk about what keeps insecurities alive and growing. Comparison. Because here's what you need to understand. Your insecurities don't exist in a vacuum. They're constantly being fed by how you measure yourself against others. You see someone more attractive, more successful, more confident, more whatever you feel insecure about. And immediately your brain does the calculation. They have what I don't have. Therefore, I'm lacking. Therefore, I'm less than. But here's the psychology behind this. Humans are wired for social comparison. Dr. Leon Festinger's social comparison theory shows that we can't help but evaluate ourselves relative to others, especially when we're uncertain about our own standing. And here's where it gets really interesting. We don't compare randomly. We engage in what's called upward comparison. We compare ourselves to people who seem better than us in the areas we're already insecure about. Think about how this works in practice. If you're insecure about your body, you don't compare yourself to random people. You compare yourself to people with the exact body type you wish you had. If you're insecure about success, you don't compare yourself to everyone. You compare yourself to people who are more successful than you. Your brain seeks out comparisons designed to confirm what you already believe, that you're not enough. And this is the fuel that keeps insecurities burning. Every comparison is another data point proving your inadequacy. Every time you see someone who has what you don't, it reinforces the belief that you're falling short, that you're less than, that the gap between who you are and who you should be is real and measurable and undeniable. But the truth is, these comparisons are rigged from the start. You're not comparing your reality to their reality. You're comparing your behind the scenes to their highlight reel, your worst moments to their best presentation, your internal experience of inadequacy to their external performance of confidence. The comparison was never fair, never accurate, never actually about objective reality. It's about confirming what your insecurity already believes. Now let's talk about what most people do when they feel insecure. They seek validation. They look for reassurance. They try to get external confirmation that they're actually okay. And here's the problem. This doesn't work. In fact, it makes the insecurity stronger. You feel insecure about something, so you fish for compliments. You post the photo looking for likes. You ask your friend if you look okay. You need someone to tell you that you're not as inadequate as you feel. And here's what's really happening. When you seek external validation for your worth, you're reinforcing the exact belief that's causing the insecurity in the first place. That your worth is external, that it needs to be confirmed by others, that you can't trust your own assessment of yourself. Dr. Jennifer Crocker's research on contingent self-esteem shows that when your sense of worth depends on external validation, on compliments, likes, achievements, other people's approval, you become psychologically fragile because that validation is temporary. The compliment feels good for an hour, then the insecurity returns. The likes feel satisfying for a moment, then you need more. The reassurance works until the next time you feel insecure, which is usually very soon. And this is where it gets complex. The more you seek validation, the more you need it. It's like a drug. You build tolerance, you need bigger doses, and the baseline feeling of security never actually improves. You're not building confidence, you're building dependency on external confirmation of your worth. But the truth is, no amount of external validation can fix an internal problem. If you fundamentally believe you're not enough, compliments won't change that belief. They'll just provide temporary relief from it. The insecurity remains because the insecurity isn't about whether others think you're enough. It's about whether you believe you're enough. And seeking validation from others is actually you admitting over and over that you don't. But what about how insecurities actually show up in your life? Because here's something most people don't realize. Insecurities don't just make you feel bad. They control your behavior in ways you probably don't even notice. When you're insecure about something, you don't just think about it. You organize your entire life around managing it, hiding it, compensating for it. And this is where insecurities become truly destructive. Think about how this works. If you're insecure about your intelligence, you might overachieve to prove yourself, or so you might avoid challenges where you could fail. If you're insecure about your appearance, you might spend hours on your looks, or you might hide from situations where you'd be seen. If you're insecure about being boring, you might constantly perform, always entertaining, never just existing quietly. And here's the psychology behind this. Dr. Alfred Adler's work on inferiority complexes shows that people develop elaborate strategies to compensate for perceived inadequacies. But these strategies, overachievement, perfectionism, people-pleasing, avoidance, they don't solve the insecurity. They just prove how much power it has over you. Because here's what's really happening. Every time you overcompensate, every time you organize your behavior around managing the insecurity, you're reinforcing the belief that the insecurity is real, that there really is something inadequate about you that needs hiding or fixing or compensating for. The insecurity isn't just a feeling anymore, it's running the show. It's deciding what you do, what you avoid, how you show up in the world. And the more power you give it through your compensating behaviors, the stronger it becomes, the more it controls you, the more your life becomes about managing inadequacy instead of actually living. Now let's talk about the most common and most destructive way insecurities manifest: perfectionism. Because here's what most people don't understand. Perfectionism isn't about high standards. It's about insecurity and disguise. You think you're a perfectionist because you care about quality, because you want things done right. But here's the truth. Perfectionism is a desperate attempt to avoid the unbearable feeling of being flawed, inadequate, not enough. Think about what actually drives perfectionistic behavior. It's not the pursuit of excellence, it's the avoidance of judgment. If you can be perfect, no one can criticize you. If you can control every variable, you can prevent the exposure of your inadequacy. If you never make mistakes, you never have to face the possibility that you're not as capable as you need to be. Dr. Brené Brown's research on shame and perfectionism shows that perfectionism is essentially armor, protection against vulnerability, judgment, and the shame of not measuring up. But here's the problem. The armor doesn't protect you. It imprisons you. And this is where it gets really destructive. Perfectionism takes your insecurities and weaponizes them. Every task becomes a referendum on your worth. Every mistake becomes evidence of fundamental inadequacy. Every imperfection becomes confirmation that you're not enough. You're not just insecure anymore. You're trapped in a system where you can never be good enough, because good enough doesn't exist, because perfect doesn't exist, because the standard keeps moving every time you get close. But the truth is, perfectionism doesn't solve insecurity. It just makes you perform it harder. You're still insecure. You've just gotten very good at hiding it behind achievement, control, and the exhausting maintenance of an impossible standard. Now let's talk about something particularly cruel about insecurities. They create the exact outcomes they fear, and then use those outcomes as proof that they were right all along. This is what psychologists call a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's one of the main reasons insecurities are so hard to break free from. Here's how this works in practice. You're insecure about being unlikable, so you act differently around people. You're guarded, you don't open up. You may come across as cold or distant because you're protecting yourself from rejection. And guess what happens? People don't connect with you as deeply. They stay surface level. And your brain says, "See, I told you. You are unlikable." But here's what's really happening. You weren't rejected for being yourself. You were rejected for being the defended, closed-off version of yourself that your insecurity created. The insecurity created the behavior. The behavior created the outcome. And now the outcome is being used as evidence that the insecurity was correct. Dr. Robert Merton's work on self-fulfilling prophecies shows that our beliefs about ourselves shape our behavior in ways that make those beliefs come true. If you believe you're inadequate, you act inadequate, you don't speak up, you don't try, you play small, and then the results of playing small confirm that you were right to believe you're inadequate. And this is the trap. The insecurity doesn't need external evidence to stay alive. It creates its own evidence. It controls your behavior in ways that guarantee the outcomes it predicts, and then points to those outcomes as proof that it's rational, that it's based in reality, that you really are as inadequate as you feel. But the truth is, the insecurity is lying. It's not predicting reality. It's creating it. And every time you let the insecurity control your behavior, you're giving it more power to prove itself right. So, after all of this, understanding where insecurities come from, how they feed on comparison, how they drive your behavior, what do you actually do about them? How do you break free from this cycle? And here's where I need to be very clear. You don't eliminate insecurities. That's not how this works. The goal isn't to become so confident, so perfect, so improved that you no longer feel insecure. The goal is to change your relationship with the insecurity so it no longer controls you. Here's the shift that actually works. You have to separate your worth from your performance. This sounds simple, but it's the hardest psychological work you'll ever do, because everything in your life has taught you that your worth is conditional, that you have to earn it, that you're only valuable when you meet certain standards. But the truth is, that's a lie. Your worth isn't something you earn or prove or maintain. You have inherent value simply because you exist. You don't have to be perfect to be worthy. You don't have to eliminate your flaws to deserve love and acceptance and belonging. Dr. Kristen Neff's research on self-compassion shows that treating yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a friend, acknowledging your struggles without judgment, recognizing that imperfection is part of being human, is far more effective for building genuine confidence than self-criticism or perfectionism ever could be. And this is where it gets practical. When the insecurity shows up, instead of trying to fix it or prove it wrong or achieve your way out of it, you acknowledge it. There's that feeling again. I'm feeling inadequate right now. And instead of fighting it or believing it, you respond with compassion. This is hard. Feeling insecure is painful, but this feeling doesn't define my worth. The insecurity doesn't go away, but it stops controlling you because you've stopped buying into its central premise, that your worth is conditional, that you need to be different to be valuable, that the feeling of inadequacy is telling you the truth about who you are. Remember that paradox we started with? That fixing your insecurities actually makes them stronger? Here's what I need you to understand. Insecurities aren't about the things you think you're insecure about. They're about the belief that you're not enough as you are, that your worth is something external that needs to be proven and maintained. And the path forward isn't about becoming perfect, achieving more, fixing all your flaws until the insecurity finally goes away. It's about recognizing that your worth was never conditional in the first place, that you don't have to earn the right to exist, to be loved, to take up space. The insecurity will still show up. You'll still have moments of feeling not enough. But when you stop organizing your entire life around managing it, and you stop believing that the feeling is telling you the truth, when you respond with compassion instead of criticism, it loses its power. You're not broken. You're not uniquely flawed. You're not failing at being human. You're just carrying beliefs about your worth that were never true to begin with. And maybe understanding that is the first step toward putting them down. Not perfectly, not all at once, but gradually, with compassion, recognizing that you were always enough. You just forgot.